So as we're now ready for the roundtable, I wonder if we are now connected to President Rifkin, who is going to join us for the roundtable, as far as I understand. Let me first introduce the moderator then for this roundtable. From this point on, Tae-Jun Han, the president of Ghent University Global Campus, will lead the roundtable discussion. And I will first hand the microphone over to President Han, and then later we will see if we are going to get connected with President Jeremy Rifkin. So President Han, the floor is yours.
We're not connected?
We are already connected.
I think I hear some sound in the background. Maybe we are connected.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
Jeremy Rifkin.
hello
So,
again. Okay, let's welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you.
All right, and now, President Han, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Well, welcome to the World Health City Forum Roundtable. And as we all know, and as we are here in this morning, the World Health City Forum has been taking place right here in Songdo, Incheon, South Korea, with participants from across the world sharing their perspectives and ideas on global risks and how to create a health city that can effectively respond and adapt to the current risks and can thrive. And our discussion has spanned the crucial themes of health, cities, and sustainability, and our engagement. And today's roundtable is an opportunity to revisit our fruitful discussions made so far and outline actionable steps for the future. And I am so honored to have four distinguished guests on the panel today. They are all experts in business and economy and politics and administration and marine science and environment and valorization and medical and environmental health, who will share their insights on global risks and strategies for creating a safe, resilient, and sustainable future. So first, I'd like to introduce today's panelists. First, perhaps Dr. Jeremy Rifkin, who is joining us online. Dr. Rifkin, can I call you by your first name, Jeremy? Just
Absolutely.
to make the roundtable in a bit friendly atmosphere. And Jeremy,
Yes.
yeah, would you please brief yourself, introduce yourself briefly?
All right. I'm Jeremy Rifkin. I live in Washington, D.C. in the United States. And I'm actively engaged in countries around the world on making the transition from a dying age of progress to an emerging age of resilience and a new industrial revolution, smart industrial revolution.
Okay, thank you. And on my left side, Professor Colin Jansen. Colin, also, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes? Okay. Good morning again. I'm still sweating from my presentation, so I'll keep it short. I'm Colin Jansen, professor at Ghent University, professor of ecotoxicology and applied marine ecology. I've published quite a lot on this, and it's part of the passion is working in an interdisciplinary way, so bringing pieces of things that I don't know into my field and the other way around. I think that's the way forward. Also for the team of this symposium, of this forum, I think interdisciplinarity is crucial. That we think about that, and we move ahead with improving our cities, improving the environment, improving the ocean through that type of science. So ocean and human health is important.
Okay, thank you. Next, Dr. Bima Arya Suigirato. Okay.
My name is Bima Arya. I'm the mayor of Bogor. I'm responsible for 1.1 million people in my city. And my professional background is lecturer and researcher. I'm actually a political scientist, so I have to learn so many things having experienced pandemic. Actually, during the pandemic, I was the first person in my city who was tested positive COVID-19 after I returning from the trip overseas.
Okay.
So it changed me the way I see the world and the way I, formulate policies.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Professor Yoon Chul-hong, who is the chairman of the organizing committee of this forum. Would you please introduce yourself briefly?
Thank you. I'm Yoon Chul-hong, the professor of Seoul National University, College of Medicine, and president of Korean Society for Preventive Medicine. My expertise is environment health. The most importantly, I'm the currently serving as chair of executive committee of this World Health City Forum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, before diving into serious discussions, perhaps let's lighten up the mood for this roundtable with quick icebreaker. So, does anyone on the panel have a pet? Bima, you have. Okay, no, not iPad, pet, P-E-T, dog or cat. Colin, you? No. You have cat, okay, good. Bima, this is a question to you. Well, if your cat could talk, what would he or she say to you?
Thanks for everything.
Really? Are you sure?
She could possibly say that.
Okay,
because we have done so many things
okay.
for her.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, perhaps next question goes to Jeremy, to you. You know the genie, coming from a magical lamp, right? A giant spirit. Genie, you don't know?
Genie, yeah.
Genie, okay, so if genie grant you a wish, what is it?
For this beautiful living planet in a dark universe to continue to flourish so that future generations, not only of our species, but our fellow creatures can enjoy the incredible experience of being alive. This would be a really important step. I'm hoping that this planet will continue to flourish for future generations. Not just our species, but our fellow creatures.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope Genie can do it not only for you, but for all humanity. Okay, the next question perhaps goes to Colin. What advice would you like to give to your 20-year-old self? Colin, why don't you use your microphone?
First of all, that I should have studied somewhat harder, because I didn't do that at the moment, but still, it worked out somehow. No, the advice I would give is, I kind of follow Jeremy. We need to, and I would have said that to myself, so probably then I would have studied harder, and perhaps try to influence positively people somewhat more than I have done in my academic career. But the same things, we're just custodians of this planet, and we need to give it to our next generations in in a healthy state, and we're not doing that. So I think the 20-year-old would have probably tried also other ways to convince people that we should have acted then, 40 years ago, because we knew already that these things were going on. We haven't acted, so we need to act. We haven't acted appropriately, timely, fast enough. So the 20-year-old would have been very impatient to act, to make this a better world, preserve this world in the state that we got it from our parents, and perhaps a few generations before.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that advice, I think, is the one we must take while we are facing the so-called global risk these days. Okay, thank you very much. Last question goes to Yunchul. Okay. If you were invisible, what two things would you do?
I thought we are friends. I think this is a really provoking question to me. How can I get such a question? Invisible man with a powerful hand?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so I think this forum and also the all people here has a wish to make a better world, better life, not just about health. So we want, as Dr. Rifkin said, we want to flourish. So that is actually goal, not just personal. Actually, that is from our biological instinct. So if I have an invisible hand with an invisible body with a powerful hand, probably I will not correct everything to the right, but I want to make people gather together to defend the threat, to flourish.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much. I think the atmosphere here is a bit more conducive to our dialogue. So I'd like to put my first question to actually Yunchul, who is the chairperson of the organizing committee. And actually, I was going to ask him about the motivations of this forum when he initiated it. But just before coming up to the stage, he asked me to ask him to tell about green space. So could you tell us about the green space?
Yeah, because actually I feel a kind of urgency to balance the argument, because Jeremy Rifkin is a strong advocate for the blue planet. So as he talked yesterday and the day before, he argued for the black planet. Actually, he said that our Earth is full of waters. And Professor Janssen also argued that blue healthy city, and he also argued that with a scientific basis about how beneficial the ocean is. So I felt that, what about the greenness? So where is the greenness? Actually, the greenness is a really important part of our life. So actually, you know, the trees in the street and the forest and the park, they're all greenness, and the greenness should be a part of the city, not just for the scenery. That is very important for our health, for our existence, and actually that is also very important defense against climate change. There has a huge absorption power of carbon dioxide, and it's really home to fauna and flora. So we see there is so many biological species in the world, many of them. Probably you may think that in the ocean there are more, but I think that there are many biological species in the green space. We interact with them, particularly the microorganism. I want to stress about the microorganism. There are really fundamental basis for the microorganism live in green space. Probably there could be some interaction from the microorganism from the blue space. There could be some interaction, but I think human body is a kind of media for the interaction of microorganism from the blue space, from the green space. So that is a fundamental basis for our health, for our existence. So actually, I have been research on the health benefit from the microorganism, particularly the microbiome in our body. We have a lot of the beneficial effect, mental and physical, a lot of the evidence. So I think green space should be regarded as a really important part of our argument. So that's why I think I felt a little urgency.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any?
Can I just add, I mean, there's no competition between blue and green space. With green spaces, we know already quite a lot of what the interactions are. So I mean, my background just commands that I talk about the oceans, which is the largest space that we have on this planet. So the blue marble that Jeremy talked about. And so that's also the 3D aspect of the oceans. I told you 4 kilometers on average depth, and so on and so on. So there's much more 3D volume than on land. But land is important, and I think the research has developed more there. But we're taking lessons from what we find in literature on green spaces and see if it also happens in blue spaces. So there's no competition. I would like to add, green spaces in cities are not just a park and some small trees. These are green spaces, but they're not living ecosystems. The functions that living ecosystems provide is not what you have here in Central Park. It might be in 50 years, in 100 years, but it's not. I mean, it's nice to be there. I'm being obnoxious probably again, but so a living ecosystem is something else than just a few trees you plant in a certain space. It's very important, but we shouldn't use this as a green source to say, well, we have a healthy city because we have here and there some trees. So that's would be my argument. So natural living systems is something different than a few trees in a certain space. So that's my critique if I would have one. But you have to start somewhere. So, I mean, what I see here in Incheon, for example, is already a good start, but we need to evolve in that concept, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeremy, do you have any comments to add to these discussions on the green space and blue space?
Well, only that I agree wholeheartedly. You know, this planet is a life planet. And it relies on four spheres: the hydrosphere, the waters; the lithosphere, the plants, the animals, the trees, the soil; the atmosphere, the oxygen; the biosphere, which encompasses all of those spheres. But the waters are the animators. Without the water, you don't have the lithosphere. Without the water, you don't have the atmosphere, the oxygen. Without the water, you don't have the biosphere. Having said that, I think we need to understand that these spheres are processes and patterns. They're not objects and structures. This is where we've gotten it wrong, at least in the modern age, thinking them as objects and structures and kind of passive. They're patterns and they're forces, and they're constantly evolving. And our human life and our fellow creatures are totally adapted, whether we like it or not, to these other spheres. Our internal biological clocks and our cells, tissues, and organs are every moment in training to the rotation of the Earth every 24 hours, our passage around the sun every 365 days. We are nature, and I think there's a project that I've mentioned in some of my talks I think is important. That's the Human Microbiome Project. Japan is there. Your scientists are along there with our NIH scientists here and scientists in the European Union and Korea, et cetera. And they're telling us that each of us is an ecosystem, not a metaphor. This is a big deal. We are literally an ecosystem, and that our body is taking in elements from the hydrosphere, the water molecules. We're taking in the elements from the lithosphere every moment. Then they go somewhere else. We're taking in elements from oxygen, and it goes somewhere else. And our body is full of other creatures. We've got millions of other creatures living in our bodies. Archaeas and fungi and bacteria. And we've got only 44% of the human cells are there. The other 56% belong to these other creatures. We only have 20,000 genes in our body. There are millions of other genes. This is a really big story. This is a huge narrative shift that we are each an ecosystem interacting with the other ecosystem. Very powerful for young people. They don't have to be afraid of nature. And I think the last thing I would say about it, the reason I'm spending more time in Asia is if you look at the Asian religions and philosophies, it's very different in the West. Well, we think of nature as something to dominate. It's our Abrahamic traditions and our three religions. But in Asia, if you look at Shintoism and Confucianism and Taoism and Buddhism, they're all about harmonizing with nature. And the East is all about we are nature. We are indivisible. Now our scientists in Japan and Korea and the US and a few other places saying, yeah, that's actually real. So you have strayed like we have strayed. But we need to get this right, that for a young generation to know that they are an indivisible and crucial part of a living earth is a very powerful story and a narrative. This is what's going to get us through this partial extinction, hopefully, and on to the other side, and hopefully allow this planet to rewow so our species can adapt to it rather than adapting these spheres to our short-term interest.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it was about 20 to 30 years ago. I remember a book entitled as the Gaia's Era, which was written by a British scientist, James Lovelock. And in his book, he proposed that all organisms on Earth and their surrounding inorganic environments are very closely integrated to form almost a single organism. So he called the Earth as Mother Earth, and added that the Mother Earth has the capability to sustain and regulate itself. But he also gave a warning to all humankind that we are putting a lot of unspeakable pressure and even damage on this Mother Earth, so making her beyond her carrying capacity. And around 20 years ago, I also remember an essay and also film called An Inconvenient Truth, made by the former Vice President of the US, Mr. Al Gore. And he also warned to all of us that our planet is getting hotter, reaching at the point at which it cannot support and sustain itself. And we have a Korean proverb here saying that everything, even a mountain, can change within 10 years of time. That means 10 years' time is enough time to change everything. Do you know why I am saying this? Actually, I am asking why we are still facing the risks that have already warned about 21 or 2 or even 3 decades ago. So my second question for our panelists is, why do you think we are still facing these risks, and what solution there will be from your point of view? Okay, Jeremy, would you please?
I'm glad you asked this question. Here's the problem. We don't have a playbook. What's happening is that we are moving to the end game, not only the Industrial Revolution and the fossil fuel civilization, and this is 6,000 years of hydraulic civilization. trying to sequester and capture and commodify and consume the waters of the planet. It's pretty bold. And we're coming to the end game here. And we don't have a playbook because we're using the same set of assumptions, the same narratives, the same worldview to address this extinction event. And it's these assumptions that gave rise to it. It's the way we organize a science. It's how we approach governance. It's the way we manage our economy. It's how we think of our selfhood. All of these assumptions that have culminated after all this time in the age of progress has taken us to extinction. That playbook doesn't work. So I think what we really need to do now is understand the age of progress was the high point and now the end game for that period of history where we tried to adapt all of nature to us, the hydrosphere, the lithosphere, the atmosphere, biosphere, all of it commodified, propertized for one species. That's over. The age of resilience, we need to now adapt our species, as we did before the Holocene, to nature, but in a more scientific way, maybe a neo-animism. We need to use the best complex adaptive social ecological model. We need to use pragmatic approaches to science. We need to be able to adapt to where nature is taking us rather than attempt to adapt nature to where we'd like it to go. Common sense. And so I think the big thing is our school systems, our universities have to move into interdisciplinary academic studies so we're not siloed in our little worlds, so we can start working and sharing our knowledge across the physical sciences, the humanities, the cultural sciences, and develop a new ontology. We have to have clinical learning in the environment. We have to begin to rethink the relationship between the metaverse and the actual universe that we live in. There's a lot of stuff we need to do. And I think the first thing at hand is, and I agree with everybody that's talked tonight, the first thing at hand is we've got to realize we are in an indivisible planet and we are an ecosystem within those ecosystems. Everything else follows from it.
Okay, thank you very much. Colin?
I agree with Jeremy, but I would like to add an additional thing. I think we need to change, that's fine. We've been saying that for a while. We've been saying that for quite a while. But we need to act, and also academia do that. We need to know this, we need to research this. What I would put forward is, we know already a lot that we can act upon. And it's time to act because we don't have another 400, 500 years to think about how to change. And I think at the basis, it's not the lack of science, it's the lack of action, and it's our paradigm of our economies that we need to rethink. And I think that's also what Jeremy perhaps alludes to. So it's the way we live and how we go about with our economies. It's us, it's the system, I would say. I mean, let me be a little bit provocative. The system of economies to which is coupled the system of action. And the system of action is through regulators, politicians, and so on. We know enough. And it's also to act now, to do certain things. What we do is we do things that, I alluded to this a little bit in my presentation, we do things at supranational levels, we all agree there, we go back home, and then back home, we don't take that to heart to do certain things. It's too slow. Perhaps I'm impatient, but I think if you look at the increases of the use of resources, this overshoot we're making, we can't afford to do this in under 100 years. So I would agree with everything Jeremy says, but the scale at which we look, this 6,000 years of civilization is fine, but we don't have another 6,000 years of civilization to repeat the same things. We know enough, that would be my thesis, is we know enough to act now to start acting now. And that would be a call to regulators, politicians, and things like that. Let's do something. And that's why I presented it here. At a city level, perhaps it's easier to get things done, to give examples of this change in economy and the way we go about with our environment. Just an idea.
Thank you. Bima?
Yesterday, on the opening sessions, there was interesting discussions about the book written by Benjamin Barber, If Mayors Ruled the World. So basically, the book is about the leadership style of some inspiring mayors around the globe. It's about leadership, it's about collaborations, it's about combining act and research, and so on and so forth. So the book is basically, it's some sort of, a Bible for mayors around the globe. I was given the book by my senior to start the job as a mayor almost 9 years ago. And from the book, we learned that, yes, we are now having a very complicated challenge compared to some decades ago. No one can imagine the world would have been hit by a series of global pandemic when most of countries at the highest level of confidence for their health services. So the pandemic hit us when many global leaders have been highlighting the issue of climate change. They were talking about climate change. They were talking about, economic cooperations. They were talking about how to improve the mutual cooperations, international trade, and so on and so forth. But suddenly, the pandemic hit the world. So since then, we realized that the challenge today are more complicated than the challenge that we faced some decades ago. COVID has given us so many important lessons. How to focus on leadership style, how to do collaborations, how to appreciate the research, and how to focus on the issue of multidisciplinary approach. Because pandemic is not about health issues, it's also touch economic issues, it's also touch about psychological, demographical, and so on and so forth. For example, as I said, I myself is a political scientist, but I have to learn about medical issues in very technical things. I have to learn about, the data informed by the statistics and so on and so forth. So it's about the leadership style who is focusing on collaborations and adapting the government with a very uncertain situations. And we have to also aware that not many of leaders are aware of this global risk. For example, in my city, we have to convince our counterpart, our local parliament, about the need for allocating more fund for research, the need for accommodating the think tank research institutions in anticipating another pandemic. Because our local counterpart, the local parliament, they are the one who approved the budget. But here, in this venue, here, in this very important event, well, there is no local parliaments or member of parliament involved. So I suggest in the futures even, it is important to accommodate, to invite also the parliaments, so they can have, a brighter perspective, a wider perspective in understanding the global risk challenge.
Okay, thank you very much. And Yunchul?
Before going to your question, actually, I agree with Dr. Bima we need to get environmental parliament people because they politically represent the people there. So I think we can, actually I plan to invite parliamentary people next year forum. So thank you very much for your opinion. And going back to the question, that is really another big question. I think Gaia theory is a really visionary theory to open our eyes and to change our views to see the world. I think the One Health idea, or One Ocean and One Health, is kind of a continuation of such an ideation to see the world. And as Dr. Rifkin argued that we are ecosystem, but we are part of the whole ecosystem, so we are really connected each other. So that is the basis of the Gaia theory. So I think that still we need to keep such a Gaia theory or ideation to see the world. And but your question is why we're struggling with such an issue that I actually presented before, not long ago. But because we are ecosystem, we are one of the big ecosystem. So we Homo sapiens is one species living in the world. So we also have a nature of species in the world. That every species has every individual. Every individual has a desire to be better off than others. But collectively, the species also want to thrive together. So there is a selfishness and unselfishness together in the species. We also have such a selfishness and unselfishness. So probably we are all unselfish. Probably we could solve really short term. But we are body with selfishness together. So we want to have more. Sometimes we want to eat more. So actually that is really devastating. But that is the nature. So we need to reconcile such a selfishness, the desire, but also unselfishness will of the community. So this forum actually is a kind of platform to talk about such things together and have a consensus by educating other people to find solutions for such a risk or threat, such as from the climate change and air pollution and population change and pandemic. So we should put such an agenda on the table, understanding our nature. So it may not be solution. So I think it is okay for me, at least, not to find solutions now, but we need to keep this road to pursue our solutions together, considering our nature. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I fully agree with you, Yunchol, about how selfish we are. But we need to make a bit of adjustment to survive us all. Okay, perhaps our panelists' opinions come to a sort of temporary conclusion that any change cannot come about through only words, but through action. And also, we have already experienced the pandemic situation where the whole world worked together to overcome the pandemic successfully. And so, yes, in this sense, I really do hope this forum, I wish this forum to continue for 100 years from this year. But anyway, I wish this forum will become a platform for a call to action and also for a reform. You know, in Korea, we call the word reform as 개혁. 개혁 means peeling off your skin to make way for the new skin, right? So we need 개혁, which means I think we need to be willingness to even sacrifice ourselves to make a change and to make the world a better place. Okay. Well, yes, we know mega risks are real and active and pose a serious threat to the whole world. But this threat takes different forms in different cities, countries, in terms of their level of development and the intensity of their impacts and the capacity to deal with them. It may therefore be impossible to develop and implement a single policy for responding to and mitigating and adapting to mega risks. In this sense, we need to give a constructive advice to the hosting city, Incheon. So why don't we take an example of Incheon City, and which is a land reclaimed city and smart city and free economic zone, and above all, ocean city. So I'd like to ask you what you think is the best way for the city, Incheon City, to be prepared for current and future mega risk and to become an ideal model city that can orchestrate the future of cities in response to the current situation. Jeremy?
An important next step. So here's the issue. We have $11 trillion have now come out of the fossil fuel industrial complex. That's a lot of money. And pension funds, 42 trillion, they're getting out. They don't want their workers to be hurt. Insurance funds, they're worried about climate disasters. They don't want to deal with it. They're getting out. So there's a lot of money. The technology's right. Solar and wind are the cheapest energies. It goes on and on. So the issue is, why aren't we scaling? Why aren't we scaling? And when you take a look at this, there are 12,000 mayors that have signed up for the climate accords. But in a lot of the places, not all of them, up to recently, you go visit these cities and they would show you their 10 electric buses, their 5 lead buildings, and their bike paths, all pilots. So industry is saying, the financial community, to me, where are the scale projects? They're not here. I'm going to give you an example of one place that's shown how it's done, and it can be done anywhere. We've been deploying with regions infrastructure projects across the EU, China, the US, and here's what we've learned. Let's take the region of France. Some of you know Hauts-de-France. It's the industrial region of France. It's the Rust Belt, but it's the industrial region of France. It's 10% of the population. It's the home of Marie Le Pen and President Macron. Very mixed region. So a number of years ago, the premier of that region came to me and said, will you do a plan for our region to move us into this age of resilience, third industrial revolution? I said, absolutely no. A total waste of your time and mine. He said, why? Because that plan will end up in a pilot project and some minister will claim a victory in a press release and it'll be on to the next thing. It's a waste of everybody's time. But I said, if you want to go back to your region and you get every single mayor involved in saying they will be engaged in doing a roadmap to transition into this third industrial revolution, digitized culture, get all the universities, all the high schools, all the civil organizations, you get them all together and come back and then tell me you've done that. They never come back. Rarely do they ever come back. This particular premier came back months later and said, we're all ready. So I said, well, the thing is, you're going to develop the deployment, not us. And that is, we'll help you with expertise. We'll show you what's worked in other places, what's not. We'll look at all the narratives, but you're going to have to mobilize the entire region. They did it. 10 years, thousands and thousands and thousands of people on citizens committees. They had, aside from that, they took every single company into seminars, 3,000 companies on moving to a third industrial revolution, age of resilience infrastructure. 26 universities came together to do interdisciplinary studies, clinical learning, 250 high schools. So what I'm saying is there's nothing magic about this. It was simply a premier in one region and the business community, the chambers of commerce, who put together citizens' assemblies for 10 years. And you can go and look on their website and see thousands of new jobs, new tech parks, everything. They just did it. There's nothing special about the industrial region of France. This can be done anywhere. And what it requires is that the governors of local regions and the mayors have to bring together the entire region in citizens' assemblies and spend years in developing the new approaches to education, economic opportunity, how to steward the ecosystem, et cetera. There's no magic in this. This is the kind of political engagement we need. And we need a new generation of mayors and governors of local regions. And the national governments, they can create the overall narrative and determine the codes, regulations, standards, and roadmap, but then the local regions have to tailor it to their specific ecosystems that they're responsible for as a commons. It's just, what I'm saying is so ordinary, but that was what needs to be done. So we need a new generation of political leaders, young ones in their 20s and 30s, who've got the energy, who've got the motivation and drive to bring their entire regions together to engage us. It's too big for just administrators. It requires the citizens' assemblies, like we have citizens' juries, that are engaged all the time.
Okay, thank you very much. What about you, Colin?
So I think your question was, what should we do in Incheon to prevent mega risks? Huh? It's a bit of a vague question, if I may say so, Professor Han, because what type of mega risk? I think this is something we need to think about. But anyhow, let's say in general, I'd like to go back to my last slide. A lot of small things is the next big thing. So I think there is already a lot of small things which can be done, which are not done. And why are they not done? Probably because of decision making again. I don't want to, bash decision makers or politicians, but this is again, the problem. I think you can set this type of programs. I think it's a wise idea to have a long-term roadmap. But there's priorities to that, and you can have some priorities where you can set and then say, this year we'll do this and that, because the technology is there. It doesn't have to be technology. It can be ecology. There's such a thing as building with nature. Not reclaiming land, but now preserving land, carbon sequestration. These are all things which can go in the equation, which I presented an hour ago, the equation where you can calculate how sustainable are you. If I'm talking about mega risks, for example, of climate change, you can calculate that. How sustainable am I? How much carbon am I reducing? Not just measurements of carbon, but also creating the ecosystem service. So I think, I've said this all along, there are things which we can be doing. I think we need to have the political support and urge of action, if I can put it like that. And then I think we can really make mega strides to prevent certain risks, well, quite a lot of risks, and not wait any longer. As I said, the science and technology is ready. It needs to be put into an action plan, and action needs to be taken. We need to think about the scale. So your question was also, is it applicable everywhere? No, I think Jeremy said that. I think it was expressed by my neighbor as well, by the mayor. So, but the scale is important. At which scale can we decide quickly enough to do certain things? And that's something that we really need to do. So I would say, Incheon, look at all the options, take an overall look at where you want to put some, well, which are the priorities in preventing mega risks? Is it health? Is it CO2? What? Is it sea level rise? And then put that in your roadmap, and then using the best available technology, which may also be nature-based, work. Do it.
Okay, thank you, Ima.
I think a more logical question from me is not about what Incheon should do in facing global risk, but instead what city of Incheon can possibly assist the rest of the cities in the regions. We admire how the government of Incheon anticipate the global risk by, focusing on the issue of education as well as the building infrastructures, which is, friendly for climate change. I had very interesting conversations with the mayor of Incheon yesterday. We possibly could have some sort of cooperations in focusing on exchange research, conducting collaborations between our universities, joint research in facing the mega risk, and also in improving the capacity building of our government official, for example. Thank you.
Thank you, Yun-chul.
Okay, that is also very much practical question, how to view the future vision of Incheon City. But I'm not talking about the wider Incheon metropolitan city. I want to talk about the Songdo, this area. The first day I stayed in the hotel, I opened the curtain in the morning. I was so amazed to see the scene, the sea there, and some stream there, and some spotted green space and apartment. It's really beautiful to me. So the first day I saw that, it's amazing. This is Incheon City's kind of future about city development. But the next day I saw the same scene, and I thought that something missing there. In such a beautiful city, this is actually designed city from nothing. It used to be sea, but it's a landfill. We designed and built a city. So this is a human development plan. But I thought that there is a very important thing missed. So my question is the people living there happy? So that is my question. Because they built the city as a smart city, focusing on convenience and automation, they dreamed the auto cars in the street and everything is automated. So the slogan probably everything on the tip, on our fingertip. So they dreamed people do not move, do not have any exercise, just stay there, but move, operating everything. That is the idea of a smart city. But my question is, people living such a space are really happy? So that is my question. So we need to build on another strategy, because our goal to thrive or flourish is happy life, good life, not automation itself, not convenience itself. So we need to develop city centering on health and safety. That is important foundation for our better life, healthy life, good life. But I think still there's a missing part in this area. So, but we need to technology, we need to build smart city, but we need to get idea of health and safety in the center. That is a smarter city idea. So that is the fundamental talk of this forum.
Okay, thank you very much, Yunchul. Well, I was going to open the floor for several questions from the audience, but our time's, I think, up. I don't want to delay the subsequent ceremony of the declaration of Incheon City. So perhaps I'd like to ask our panelists to give us the closing remark, 1 minute closing remark for each. Jeremy?
You know, every time I'm with my friends in Korea, I'm energized. I really mean this. I so admire your culture. You're really a real good example of what can be done in other places. You know, here's one of the poorest countries in the world after World War II and the Korean War. Now you're a world leader, and you have such talent. And I always wondered why Korea is so successful. And the conclusion I came to, you've had a lot of bad history in the past where you've been occupied and colonized, and undermined, and you've been able to maintain your culture, your identity, your sense of cooperation and empathic engagement with each other. I see it every time that I visit with you. So I think that you have a real opportunity here to be a very vital force in the world as we move to this age of resilience. And particularly your young people, they're dedicated, they're concerned, they're caring, they're empathic. So I just enjoy the time. It energizes me to be with folks like you on these occasions. So I want to thank all of you for doing what you do.
Okay, thank you. Colin?
Well, again, let me thank you and everybody here to attend this forum. I think it's the first, but not the last. I do hope so, because these are the type of interdisciplinary discussions we need, hopefully followed by action. And I think if this forum can be now a push towards action, I think that would be a good idea. So that's my first class plea for action, and perhaps Incheon could be a leader in that, in showing how you can implement certain issues. Secondly, I think what I've said before, I think we should have a happy city, which makes happy people, and we should have more emphasis on that also in the smart city. I get sometimes the impression, and when I go to other cities I have the same impression, that the city is a kind of living organism itself. So the buildings and the stones have a function and are the skeleton of a city, and then you have like people doing things there and going back to their homes. I think somewhere we need to think about stepping back. Perhaps it's my European background that does this, but stepping back and making it a cozy, healthy city. And that can be done by reintroducing, and coming back to the same thing, for example, nature-based solutions, as I suggested. So I hope that Incheon can be a kind of living lab to try and do these things, to show to the world we can do it better. These 70% of the world population, which in 30 years will live in coastal cities, will have benefits, or will get benefits from the living lab that Incheon could be. So that would be my closing remark and my wish for the future.
Okay, thank you, Pima.
Well, I think what we have been enlightened by this conference for the last few days is actually the sense of urgency. This forum is actually sending a clear message to the world that our world is not in a good conditions. We are facing a very complicated challenge ahead, and there is no country or cities who can solve it all alone. So collaborations is a magic word, and I do hope that this conference will continue in, as a melting pot for different kind of perspective, multidisciplinary approach, and also multi-actors involvement in this conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yunchul.
I would like to use my closing opportunity, just 1 minute because. So I'd like to give my special thanks to my fellow panelists and also the Jeremy Rifkin. Actually, he is joining in the very early morning in Washington. This is not easy time for him to join, considering everything. So I'd like to give a special thanks to Dr. Rifkin, and also want to give my thanks to audience attending this forum and this session too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, once again, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the 4 panelists this morning for joining us for the roundtable. Particularly Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us in such an early morning. I didn't know about that.
Thank you for inviting me. I need to thank you.
Okay, and I hope all of you enjoyed the roundtable. Did you? No? Yeah? Yes, okay. And I look forward to seeing you all here at the same place next year to continue our dialogue about the betterment of our planet and the humanity. So thank you very much, and we will be back.
Thank you very much. Please give a big round of applause to President Tae-Jun Han and all the panelists who brilliantly concluded the final session of the first forum. So let's give them another big hand.